Hey everybody, this is The Trout, aka Rick Troutman. Welcome to The Trout Show podcast. You know what I do? I interview musicians that are located all over this wonderful planet of ours that are very talented. Some of them you'll know, and some of them you may not know, but one thing I will tell you, you'll know about their life in the music industry. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee or your favorite adult beverage, and listen to our next episode coming up right now.
Next thing you know, we were toe-to-toe. I was teaching her to two-step on the floor to George Strait, and it was going great. Call it supernatural fate. I felt her body melt into mine. I knew my spell was working just fine. And I whispered, girl, it's time for redneck magic. Let's go for a ride. Hop on board my John Deere Classic to the countryside. You don't need them high heels, you don't need them high heels. So what this boy's got planned for you, you can have it, redneck magic.
Hey everybody, this is The Trout, and welcome to another episode of The Trout Show podcast. Today we talked to that gentleman that just did that song you heard, which was called Redneck Magic. The artist is Robert Abernathy, and his story is very interesting because he gave up after 25 years of being a middle school teacher in Alabama. He decided to take his family, move to Nashville, and seek a career in country music, and guess what he's doing? He's doing that, and he's doing it very well. This is a brand new song he just had out, Redneck Magic. So sit back, you know what it is, get your favorite adult beverage or a cup of coffee, and enjoy this episode with Robert Abernathy next on The Trout Show. Ask you is who's the bartender in the video?
That is Smo.
Who?
Smo. That's
oh,
Smo. That was Smo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, my wife goes, "Who's the guy?" And I go, "I'm the bartender."
Yeah. No, Smo. A lot of people recognize him because when he was really, really doing well with Warner Records, he was a little bit larger, and he had a heart attack at the age of 39.
Ooh.
And I think he had a triple or quadruple bypass
At that age. Wow.
Yeah. And they basically told him, look, you got to change your lifestyle, and so he did. He's you can find him on YouTube with his health videos and stuff. I mean, he's lost hundreds of pounds, and even influenced me to change some of my own health choices, lifestyle choices. And he looks a lot different for sure. A lot of people don't recognize him now.
Well, was it your idea? And we're talking about the song Redneck Magic. Was it your idea to put the rap thing in there? Did you already have that discussion and then say, hey, I think it'd be good if he did that, throw that in there?
Yeah. So when I was in the studio, my producer and he has the same producer, Josh Bright. And when I was in the studio, we'd finished the song. We had a solo there, a guitar solo. And the guitar solo had that funky little that
riff in it.
Yeah. So the solo, we had that in there. Because I wanted to make sure that people kind of caught that.
Yeah.
But I also told him, I said, but what I'd really like to do is I'd love to have a feature on this song. And I was looking. We were looking and possibly a rap feature, which I'd never done before, but I thought it would be kind of cool to cross over because the song was not your traditional country song.
No.
So we were looking for a feature, and he calls me, a couple weeks later, and maybe not even that long. He says, "Hey, listen, I've got Big Smo in here in the studio today, and I played him your song, and he wants to be on it." And so I said, "Okay," and I'd heard of him before,
right?
But I got on YouTube and just kind of hunted him down and saw, like the guy had, some of his older videos, like 37 million views. which was way more than anything I'd ever had,
Kind of changed your attitude a little bit.
So, but the bonus was that Smo was his genre was basically country rap,
Right.
and all of his stuff that he has in his audience fit perfect with like even the title of the song, Redneck Magic, which was better than the alternative, that I was going to have to hunt down to kind of put in there. I'm not I'm not a hip hop guy. I'm just straight up country as I get.
Yeah.
But that fit, and it fit his audience perfectly.
It fits perfectly. It fits perfectly.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm going along listening to the song. I'm going, okay, I'm waiting for something to happen. And this guy goes over, hey, wait a minute, this is the bartender he's talking to. All of a sudden he's doing a rap, and I'm going like, well, I think the thing is, you and you know this, you're an artist, it crosses over.
Yeah.
So I always think it's kind of cool if you're clever enough, and that was just luck. Yeah. I mean, the fact that he was in the studio and your producer goes, hey.
I know. It could have been even more perfect because, like you said, I mean, it definitely connects a different audience. And so because of that, we were able to get the song out in time. And he and I become friends. Yeah, I just drove out to his house, and we finished writing the lyrics, and he cut it from his house, sent it to Josh. Josh pieced it together and sent it to me. I was like, man, this is different. this is different. And in writing songs, you have to be you have two choices. You can either follow the cookie cutter method.
Yeah.
That's out there, whether it be Texas country, whether it be Nashville country, whether it be, you have there's kind of a formula, right? And, or you can do kind of what I do. And that's, I try not to follow everything that you hear. I try to put pieces of a little bit of everything into my songs. I've got a library full of them, and none of them really sound identical to each other, and I do that on purpose. There's a wide range of genres. I cut one yesterday in the studio. I sent it to my producer, and I said, "Look, whatever you do, this is funk. And I've never done a funk song, but when I wrote it, I'm sitting here hearing in my ears like this is like." Bruno Mars, Prince. I can hear the horns in the background, and he's looking at me puzzled, and like, okay. I said, but can we invent funk country? Throw an element of country in there just to kind of make sure it appeals. And so it worked. I mean, it actually worked. I got done with the first part of it yesterday, and in Nashville in the session. And these studio musicians, I mean, these are the same guys that record for, they've done projects with Luke Combs, I mean, these are the guys. And so they know when I come in, I think by now that, okay, this is not going to be, we've got Robert on the docket today. This is not going to be like your typical Jason Aldean.
It's probably
Luke
fun
Bryant.
For them. I'm sure it's fun for them.
Yeah.
No, all right, let me ask you this. Yeah. So do you sit at home, do you have your own DAW and just kind of lay some tracks down and then bring it into the studio, or how do you present it to the band?
Different. Usually I'll take the acoustic guitar and I'll just hit the voice memo on the recorder on my phone.
Right.
And I'll just record something, just scratch. And then I'll listen to it. If I kind of get a little weird with the tempo, or sometimes I'll put it into Logic, and then I'll record it with a click track,
right,
and then do the vocal. So I've done it both ways, but 9 times out of 10, it's really just comes from my phone.
Yeah,
I'll just pick it up. I got there at about 11 o'clock, and they were waiting on me to get there. Just to kind of they already had it charted. Everybody had their chart. They had never sat down and played it. All they had was a bunch of numbers, a Nashville number system on a sheet of paper. And I talked briefly to them, just kind of, this is kind of what I'm looking for. I want it to sound kind of like this. And then I played them a little reference from my phone, and they all go into their separate rooms. and I can hear them all working individually on their own, kind of what they're feeling just from listening to it just once. And then at 1, 2, 3, and then they kind of start running through it, and they hear them start playing. They did one run, and then they came back through and they started talking about it. And then they did another pass. And the next thing you know, 30 minutes later, they're through. They have completed the song, and it's just incredible to watch them work. I don't understand it.
You decided after 25 years, you grew up in Alabama, right? Now, where are you
I
from
did.
originally?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said, oh, hey, I've been a teacher for 20, I assume you went and got a degree. You obviously have a
Yeah.
teaching certificate and all that stuff. And what grade did you teach? What would you normally do?
I taught for the majority of my career. I taught 7th grade science.
So, okay. So that's middle school. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Middle schoolers is where I spent the majority of my time teaching.
And you were in a state where people respect their teachers most likely. Most likely.
For the most part, yes.
You
Yeah.
always have those outliers. But so after that, you said, okay, this is it, honey. We got to go to Nashville. I have the urge. And
Yeah,
how many years ago has that been?
that was 20, that was last year. So it was last
Oh, wow.
2022 is when we finally made the move. I mean, for 25 years, well, to back up, I played a lot before I started teaching.
Oh,
I
sure.
was
You had to be
writing, I was
playing or
doing,
you wouldn't be as good as you are. Absolutely. Yeah.
but I did put it down for probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so. I wasn't
Mhm.
playing at all. I'd pick up the guitar every now and then. I do, something. I had a small demo recording studio. I tinkered around with for a couple of years, and then in 2009, I think 2009, 2010, somewhere in there, I had a friend of mine suggest I start playing some open mics. He had heard me sing. He's like, dude, you got to do something with this. So I did, and then next thing I know, I'm playing solo shows and picking up residencies wherever I would go. They'd ask me, "Hey, look, can you come back and play every
Now,
week?"
what state were you in? Had you
This
already
was
moved at
this
that point?
was no, this was still in
Oh,
Alabama.
okay. So it's not about, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, and so that went from playing, shows around town in the Birmingham, Alabama area to I started picking up private event shows all over the country. And
Now, did you have your
yeah,
own band? You have your own band or were you doing solo stuff?
I did. I had, but it didn't start that way. I did play in a band. I was the front guy for a band, but that lasted for about 6 months or so.
Mhm.
And I realized that it's just easy for me just to strap up a guitar on my shoulders and, show up at a gig and play. It was a whole lot easier.
Right.
But, I was still writing a little bit, not a ton at the time. This was, like I said, this was in 2009, 2010. And then from there, I started playing. I was picking up quite a bit of shows and still teaching and coaching, by the way. I was coaching football and wrestling, mostly wrestling. I did that for most of my career. And what was happening was I would be coaching and, we'd be waiting for parents to show up. It'd be 5:30 to come pick up their kids. And I've got to be across town to play a show, by 6:30, 7 o'clock. And, we started running into issues with that. And finally I went to the principal, I said, look, I'm going to have to stop coaching after this season.
Yeah.
And they did. He let me do it. And then the funny thing was the following school year, they had hired someone for that position. And then, at the last second, he decided he didn't want to do it. The principal came back to him and said, look, I don't care what you have to do. You can just be a sponsor. You can have a coach come out there and run it, and you just be there.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I can't do that. So I ended up coaching an extra year. But anyway, so that happened for a long time. I was playing shows while teaching, while coaching. Family. I got 5 kids and have several dogs, and we had life was just crazy.
Yeah.
But the people that I worked with at the time while I was a teacher, I'll say this: they were so supportive of me. They knew that I had a second career outside of teaching, and not a single time did I ever have an issue with a teacher or an administrator that I worked with go, you got to quit this and focus just on teaching, because I love teaching. That was my
Well,
passion too.
obviously, if you did it that many years, sure you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I'm sure they saw was the love you had for music, but also the talent you had. I mean, you had talent in both areas, but it's like, okay, we're holding you back. You know,
Well, yeah, in a strange kind of way, that's kind of how it played out a little bit. I was playing a solo show in Birmingham, and I'd played in Nashville every now and then, but there's because there's so many places to play, private
sure.
events, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I hadn't played on Lower Broadway. I remember going when I was younger to Lower Broadway. I don't know if you've been down that stretch before.
No, I've heard you talk. Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
Um, it's incredible. I mean, from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock a.m., there are bands out there playing and rocking it in all these different bars and venues. And when I was younger, I'd made a trip up there, and I remember it was with a friend of mine. He was a co-writer at the time, and I just remember thinking, man, I would if I ever get to play here, I feel like I've accomplished something.
Mm.
And so, fast forward to 2020, I think 20, maybe 21, no, 2020. It was right around COVID. I was playing a show in Birmingham, and at this show I was doing just all my original stuff. And this guy comes up to me afterwards, and it was an introduction to a friend of mine, Chuck Rackley, and introduces himself, said, "Hey, look, I book the shows in Nashville for at the Tin Roof, and I'd love to have you come play there." Well, I was just elated. I was just thinking, I get to go play a writer's round in Nashville. I'm cool with that. I was excited.
Sure.
I get a call the next day, or the following Monday. I'm at work. I get a call. I'm in the classroom. I recognize his number because I'd saved it. And so I walked outside the classroom, answered the phone call, and it goes, "Hey, this is Brad." Said, "Listen, I want you to know that I really enjoyed it, and I want to give you your own residency downtown Nashville once a week." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Your own show. You play your own show for 3.5 hours, and I'm gonna give it to you every week." But it was on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And as you know,
yeah.
is it on a Tuesday? I'm supposed to be, in the classroom Monday through Friday teaching kids. And if I go up there every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, that means I'm going to have to leave early in the morning. I'm going to definitely miss school.
Yeah.
I went and told a coworker, and she was like, you need to do it. You need to do it. I was closing in on, in Alabama, you can retire after 25 years.
Is there tenure in Alabama? Is there tenure?
There is.
Okay.
There is. And I was closing in on year 25, and it was just right around the corner, another year. And I think everybody at that point knew I was probably going to retire and do something with music. So I went to principal's office and told him, and, I've got this opportunity. He could have said no. He could have said, "No, you have to teach." But at the time, he, like you said a minute ago, he was extremely supportive and said, you make sure your class is taken care of. He said, "Go do it." And so I did, and I did it for a while, and it was that residency led to another one, and then another one, and then, I've got right up to the time for me to officially retire in 2022. And that's when we decided, look, let's just move to Nashville and let's just see what happens. Yeah. And then since then it's been crazy, absolute crazy.
Funny thing about life is you never know when that opportunity is going to hit. You just never know.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hit. I wanted to hit when I was 18 or 20 or 19. It didn't.
Well, the weird thing is especially in country music, it seems like everything nowadays has to be built around a storyline. Like if you're going to break an artist, they have to have, okay, they can sing, which most people can sing, but they need that element of, well, okay, good, but what's his story?
Yeah.
And I always felt like I didn't have one, Rick. I felt like, I just felt like, my story is really, I don't have one. I'm just a songwriter.
That's the
And
Southern in you. That's the Southern in you
yeah,
right there. I ain't going to be braggadocious. I'm just a songwriter, you
you
know.
know, well, that's
Yeah.
kind of, and when I first moved here, we really moved here. I moved here not as an artist. I moved here as a songwriter because where my passion was.
Right.
But I had people constantly poking me like, dude, you need to be playing, you need to be doing some things. And so yeah, I started, looking around, trying to figure out where I fit in. But I remember one time I was playing, at downtown Nashville, and this guy walks in, and me and Nick Williams were playing a duo. He walks in, he looks, he's standing right in front of me. He's got his arms folded like this, and he's about 10 feet away, and he's just listening. And
Yeah.
it was one of those days where vocally I felt good. You know how that probably goes. Some
Yeah.
days you're good, some days you're off, and this was a
Yeah.
good day.
Yeah.
Anyway, he listens for an entire song, doesn't say a word, and then he comes up to me at the end of I think probably the second song I'd done, and he said, so I was walking by, I listened to you, and said, what's your goals? And I didn't need hardly even introduced. I don't even remember if he told me his name.
Right.
And so I said, I just and I don't know how to answer it. I just was like, I just enjoy playing, and looking back, I should have said, I'm here for a record deal and you're going to give it to me. That's what I should have done.
It wouldn't have gone that well. It wouldn't have gone that well, probably.
But turns out he was an A&R guy with BMG who was on his way
guys.
to another show, and I pulled him off street, because they blasted speakers out there, out in Broadway.
Like New Orleans where they have the jazz. Yeah, it's the same concept, yeah.
But the weird thing happened. What happened, Rick, was he goes,
Today's podcast is supported by David Smith of Edward Jones. Are you happy with your financial strategy? Or maybe like to see what other opportunities are out there? Well, give David a call at 469-372-1587. That's 469-372-1587. David is only concerned about one person, that's you and your financial health. So check him out, David Smith, Edward Jones, 469-372-1587.
After our conversation we'd exchanged, I give him a card and we had talked, and I could tell that he was genuinely interested. He says, well, how old are you? And immediately I thought,
oh no.
Okay, here we go. I said, at the time I was 48. And I said, I'm 48 years old. And I could see him go, his face go, just like that. And within 30 seconds, he had already shook my hand and walked out the door.
Yeah.
So in the back of my mind, that was never going to be my story, right? Because if that's how the music industry feels, and up to that point, honestly, things have changed in the past couple of years. But up to that point, they were looking for people with mullets and 23 years old. And I mean, that's kind of what they were looking for. And I didn't have any of those. And nobody breaks into the scene at the age at my age. That just doesn't happen.
No.
I've been doing it a while, and so I've got to have a track record, and I have some accolades, some things that I've accomplished. But as far as officially breaking out into country music radio, it just doesn't happen at my age. And I was realistic about it. But what ended up happening was people started grabbing onto the actual story of, well, hey, this is actually a story. I never wanted to be the poster child or carry the flag of 50 and up.
Yeah.
That was never my intention to start waving around going, hey, look at me. I'm 50 and I'm, but that's the story that people have gravitated towards. Like, look, no, this is a story. You paid your dues as a teacher. you did, you raised a family, you did this and this and this, and you decided to chase a dream that people had always wanted you to chase and told you to go do, and you just never could. But now I can. Now I retired.
When the guy says, you tell him your age, and he goes, oh, crap. It didn't
Yeah.
matter to him at that point. That's what's
Right.
funny about it. He didn't care. He heard you. It shouldn't. And it's like, dude, they don't see me on the radio. As soon as he heard that, I was like, well, crap. And it's like, what difference does it make? You didn't seem to bother you when you walked in here,
Yeah.
But the story is, to me, is it's to me not just about that. And that's the other thing that most people I always talk to. They're driven to play, and if they could play all the time, they'd even do it without getting paid. I mean,
Yeah.
they have to have pay, but they love it so much. And people that are not creative don't understand that because
Right. It's you're absolutely right. Like I'm not an artist. I don't claim to be, but for a couple of years I dabbled in, I was a huge Bob Ross fan. I don't know if you were, but the artist, and have painted the pretty little trees and
these
stuff. And
little trees, happy little flowers.
and I always wanted to paint those happy little trees. And so I did. One day I just picked up a brush, had no training at all, never done. I picked up a brush and found a canvas and just started painting just based off memory. And I remember thinking, well, nobody's ever going to appreciate this, but I love it and I'm going to keep it. And there it is. And I did a couple of those. I never sold them or anything. I think I maybe gave a few away, and I never really did anything with them. But it was because I put work into it, and it was art. I wouldn't make any money off of it. And so you're absolutely right. Artistic people, especially, and even songwriters, I can't tell you how many songs I've written that just sit in a folder. I loved it when I wrote it. And the same is true with so many songwriters I know.
Yeah.
That do all these co-writes. They go in, they write a song. Next day they get up, drink coffee, and they write another song with someone else. And most of the time, you're talking, 99% of the songs never get out because there's no, a lot of people don't have the money and finances and the publishing money behind them to put this stuff out.
Yeah.
So it is all about being creative and appreciating your own work. And I think for me, and me and my wife were talking about this the other day, and I think I had a conversation yesterday and was pretty much talking about the same thing. Sometimes I don't necessarily want to get the pat on the back necessarily, but I do want to be recognized for my hard work like anybody else would.
Yeah.
I mean, if you work a job, if you do a great job at what you do, you don't have to have an award for Employee of the Month or here he is. No. He did, but recognition, like, hey man,
yes,
you did a good job. And that's all most people want, I think.
Hardest thing, I think, for one of the difficult things is trying to convey what's in your head to the people in the studio.
It is impossible.
You go like, I hear horns. Well, like what? Horns. Come on.
I was having this exact conversation last night with my best friend Craig. We were talking about it, and we haven't added the horns yet to the recording. Josh is going to go back and add some of that. And I think we're going to use some real horns and not just the brass on a keyboard.
Yeah. Use the real ones. Yeah.
But I'm hearing, I can hear it in my head. I hear the song exactly the way I want to do it. And so when I did it on my phone, just recording it, I sent it to Josh. I said, look, this is nothing like what I'm hearing in my head. And I tried to describe it to him. Took the studio, and I could tell that it wasn't completely translating. So you're right. It is impossible sometimes to do it unless you're like humming every single lick that a guitar needs to play or the horns need to play. It's hard to do. But
the other part of that is what the other people bring in that you never thought of. Going back to your music, when you were growing up, even as an adult, did you start listening to country right away?
Yeah.
Who did the people what was your kind of the people you listened to when you were growing up?
I grew up listening to Alabama records. Like we had one of those. I don't know, you can't see it right now. I actually have it behind me here. But it was one of those big buffet looking stereos from the 80s or way back. You know what I'm talking about? It had the speakers built in and you open up the top.
Oh, yeah.
So we had one of those, and we had a collection of,
And
my
it had a
family had it.
turntable in it.
That's it.
Turntable.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was the kind of the centerpiece at the time. This was late 70s, early 80s, and these records that we had were old Southern gospel records and Alabama. And I remember listening to Alabama when I was younger. We had it was Love in the First Degree was probably the first Alabama song that I really remember. And we had Mountain Music and all those. And I fell in love with it. And then the older I got, I really fell in love with the sound of like good harmonies. The Eagles, Alabama. And then the older I got, it was Shenandoah and Diamond Rio and all of these great bands, country bands. Restless Heart. I loved learning how to pick out the harmonies and singing.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to, when I started my own group, when we were in high school, we used to enjoy just the creative process of breaking down a song by parts and singing and stuff. And so my early influences were Alabama, the Eagles, and ironically, I'm a lead singer of an Alabama Eagles tribute band now.
Right.
I didn't orchestrate it that way, but it sure helped when it came time for us to figure out, okay, what songs are we doing? We're like, I got you, man. Look, here they are. I'm ready to go. Y'all need to learn your stuff because I've already, I know these songs.
Are you working on? I know you went to the studio yesterday. What are you working on? I mean, you're working on trying to finish an album, or what's your goal now? The local goal, so to speak.
Well, so to back up, these, I mentioned this earlier, but I've got all these songs that I have done for the past I don't know how many years, and I've put out albums, I've put out EPs and singles, but I also had some that I put back like this. These are going to be singles on my new album, and I've had this album sitting waiting for almost 2 years now. Some really, really good stuff in there. But I don't want to put it out until I have the money, the resources, the marketing to put them out, because I feel like they're too good in my mind just to put out there and be done with it. So I've been waiting on that opportunity.
You're past
for
that
now.
point in your life, in your career. Yeah. You're past that now. Yeah. You don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that it's done right. And so in the meantime, what's happening is I'm still writing. I still have ideas. And sometimes, I'm sure you've done this before, you get an idea and you have to pretty much stop what you're doing wherever you are and get it down or record it or do something. And I have so many of those. And so as a result, here's what's coming up. I've got a video shoot. I was in the studio yesterday. I'm going back in the studio Thursday to finish the vocals on this song. I've got a video shoot for a song on Saturday and I'm with an artist that was Miss University of Alabama. It's going to be the other vocal on this, and it's a Christmas song, so we've got to get it out pretty soon. I've got to get that out, I know, relatively quick because we're right here at the holidays. But it's a great song. What's
the title? What's it called?
It's called Christmas Eve Alone, and it's about Mrs. Claus always spending Christmas Eve by herself.
It's not supposed to be funny, but it's funny when you think
he's
out helping everybody else. What about your wife? Well, she's sitting at home
hanging
out with the elves. That's all she does.
She spends, Christmas Eve by herself every single year.
Now, is it upbeat or is it a ballad?
It's a ballad.
I figured
it's a fun duet, and I cannot wait. But a friend of mine named Paul Kofer brought it to me, the idea, and I held on to it for a little while, kind of figuring out which direction we probably should take it, and it's going to be a really good one. That's coming out. And then we have another one called Somewhere Around 18. It is definitely more of your rock country vibe. That's going to be probably around the first of the year. And I think we're going to probably put out an EP. I've just got at some point, something's got to give. Like I've got to either really put some muscle behind this new album and get it out there, or it's just going to sit and collect dust. And there's some really good songs on here with some great co-writers, fantastic tracks that were done in the studio. And
Are
I'm
you
just,
going to go out and support it? I guess is always the question you have.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Now, let me ask you a question about Nashville itself, the music industry, so to speak. Because I would assume that a lot of people, obviously, a lot of the stations in Nashville country, do people listen to the new stuff? Is that where they get a lot of it? Or, in the rock world, they all want to have playlists and all that stuff. In other words, you release a song and the radio stations say, okay, we're going to pick it up. Of course, I know it's all weird now with the program. It's all done
yeah.
by big companies somewhere in New York City or whatever. Is that where a lot of people get their music now? Or how do you think? And I'm talking just strictly the countryside of the business right there in Nashville.
It's probably not a lot different than anything else. And, you have to have, I mean, you think about the major artists right now, right? You think about Lainey Wilson, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And, she was, TikTok was what got her out there. And then, Jelly Roll is become a major, but it's his story. He's very, you can't miss Jelly Roll when you see him. You're like, oh, well, there he is. I mean, it's obvious who that is. To get on radio, I think it's different. To be heard, you still have to have that big engine behind you. Independent artists can only go so far.
Yeah.
And you can buy your way into a lot of things with on your own, but still that big engine is in Nashville kind of controls everything. And that's not, I hate that's the way it is. I mean but that's the unfortunate truth. Now you can get streams, but it's different than, when I first started. Everything now is social media, it's TikTok, and that's the language of social media that I hate. It has nothing to do with talent. Like, oh, that's a great song, but what are your TikTok numbers? Well, I don't know. I mean, you want me to go do a dance? I mean, I can hang up. I can get off this podcast right now and do some weird dance to my own song and put it on TikTok. But that's just the nature of the beast now. I hope that changes.
It is, and I haven't. I'm going to have to go to TikTok. I just won't do it. I'm just so paranoid about Chinese people getting into my stuff.
Yeah.
And finding out it's like, but that's where it is. And you get one thing blow up on TikTok and it's like, and I guess so you're talking about even the country, mine is more blues oriented music, I guess, but that's a very niche business right there. But I guess still people find that music on TikTok. You would think only people under 20 would be using TikTok, but apparently that's not true if they're finding country artists.
In fact, the marketing company that we're going with, in fact, is like, we do not want to spend the money to get this to radio. And 10 years ago, I would have thought, are you crazy? Yeah, that's where we want to be on radio. And then they said to me, and it's made sense, Robert, when's the last time you got in your vehicle and you listened to a radio station? And I got to think, I was like, I don't know. The first thing
I
you
can
do
tell you
when
what
you
I
get a
listen to, talk radio.
Well,
occasionally I put it on. Yeah, but I mean,
like I listen to, you're right. I mean, every now and then I listen to sports radio.
Yep.
But for the most part, if I'm in the vehicle or the kids in the vehicle with me or my wife, you're streaming, you're Bluetoothing, and you're anytime we've gone on a trip, on a vacation, we've never listened to radio. It's always been, whoever's in the back seat controlling it, and they're going through a playlist or whatever. And
because first there's no commercials.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. And you're also listening to stuff that you already heard before.
Right.
And so the marketing company says, what are they going to promote it? Through TikTok and Instagram? I mean, what's their main thing to drive it?
It's just like TikTok. For example, if
Amazing.
you're at home, and this may not be your household, I know it is. It's been at mine for a while now, but especially kids or young people or anybody. If you're sitting on the couch, you get home from work, and you've got this phone in your hand. Most people nowadays are just scrolling through Facebook or scrolling through YouTube or scrolling through TikTok. That's where their focus is.
Yeah.
And even if something is on TV, watching a movie, watching a game, or whatever. And a lot of people have the phone in their hand, just kind of scrolling through stuff. But I hadn't told you this story, but
Go ahead, wrap
my
it up.
well,
Go ahead,
this
tell
is
me.
this my buddy, my best friend. He was in. I told you we sang when we were in high school, and he was one of the guys that was with me. We graduated together. We spent. I mean, he's best friend in the whole world. He ended up going to law enforcement and had a tough time here and there, and we ended up deciding years later that, hey man, why don't you just join me on stage? But at this time I was playing solo shows. He grabbed a cajon and he started playing drums, just as a duo.
Yeah.
We did that for a while, and then people started asking us to play band shows, and so I picked a few people.
He'd bring the cajon together, and then you'd play the guitar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had a whole band, and he was playing the cajon with a full band. And eventually, like we can't, and we started playing bigger shows. Like we can't do this anymore. You're gonna have to play drums. So he bought a drum set, started learning to play the drums, and then next thing you know, he's playing drums with me all over the place. And he came down with COVID, in 2021, and ended up being hospitalized, and then eventually he was on a ventilator for like almost a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And he came out of it, and he's good now, but I feel like when I'm good now, he's I mean, we talk every day, but he can't get around much. No, his lungs function at like 40%. He can't he can't hardly get out at all. And just to walk or stand up is a success now. Whereas he was in great shape, he's a drummer, these guys can go forever.
Oh yeah.
But I sit here and think, he can't play with me anymore. And, I've had some successes and some things happen, and he would be right there with me, right in the middle of it. I feel like I'm doing a disservice to people like him that, it wasn't necessarily his dream, but he was with me all along.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like if I don't make the effort to do things while I can, then I'm doing him a disservice. And so I was fortunate enough this past weekend. I'll wrap it up with saying this. I got to see my daughter in a pageant.
Cool.
I
How
got
old
to
is she?
She's 17.
Okay.
I got to see my son perform in a play, and my daughter, both they were in a school play. And I had a release party on this past Friday for Redneck Magic, and I got my son showed up for that. I also got to see my other boy when I went to go see Vivi and Eli perform. I got to see him. He's in college now, and one son came to my release party, and I had another one, number 5, came with me a couple nights ago at the Josie Music Awards. I was nominated for Entertainer of the Year,
cool,
or Country Artist of the Year, and Country Vocalist of the Year. And he got to go with me with that, my wife. So for now, I'm thankful that they're they could easily go, you know what, you've spent a lot of time doing music, and I probably could have been spent a little bit more doing this here and there, but the fact that they still support me and still do that means the world.
You're supporting each other. That's really what it's all about. So that's supersedes anything that we do, right?
Yeah,
that's
true.
We do it because we love music, but we also do it for people like them. And you're just as proud as them as I'm sure as they are proud of you.
I hope that's the case.
And I'm sure that's the case. And when you get your whatever award you get in the future, they'll be right there with you going, that's my dad up there. I don't like his music, but that's my dad.
I know that's the case. Well, thank you so much, Rick. It was
my pleasure. It's a great meeting.
Really enjoyed the interview, and let's keep in touch.
All right. You take care. Have a good day. See ya.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye. Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much to Mr. Robert Abernathy for stopping by and talking to me. We appreciate it very much. For more information about Robert, you can go to his website, find all the appropriate links you need to find. It's robertabernathymusic.com, robertabernathymusic.com. And a very big shout out to our continued support from David Smith of Everett Jones. Thank you, Mr. Smith. We like what you do, and thank you so much. For more information about The Trout Show, you can always find all our links and appropriate information at thetroutshow.com. So until next time, remember, people, it's only rock and roll. But don't we love it? See ya.
Call it supernatural fate. I felt her body melt into mine. I knew my spell was working just fine. And I whispered, girl, it's time for redneck magic. Let's go for a ride. Hop on board my John Deere Classic to the countryside. You don't need them high heels. You don't need them high heels. So what this boy's got planned for you?